I love him, Aunt Margaret, Elena said. And he loves me. Why wait? After the visit, Elena met with James to review the recordings. Her aunt had made several calls immediately after Elena left, including one to Victoria. It's happening Monday, her aunt had said on the recording. We need to move the money Thursday night, before Friday's transfer. Once Elena has full control, we'll lose our window. They had their proof. Marcus, Victoria, and Aunt Margaret were coordinating to steal Elena's inheritance, planning to move the money before Elena's courthouse wedding could even take place. #### Justice prepares to strike. James contacted the FBI with the evidence they'd gathered. The federal agents were interested, very interested. Romance fraud across state lines was their jurisdiction, and they'd been looking for Marcus Brennan for years. We'll be ready Monday, the lead agent told them. Let them think they're getting away with it. Let them proceed with the wedding. We'll arrest them all when they try to access the accounts. Elena felt a strange mixture of emotions as Monday approached. Relief that justice was finally coming. Anger at the months of manipulation and lies. Sadness for the innocent person she'd been before all this started. On Sunday night, James stopped by Elena's apartment to check on her. How are you feeling? He asked gently. I don't know, Elena admitted. Part of me can't believe this is really happening. Part of me is terrified something will go wrong. It won't, James assured her. We've been thorough. We have evidence, testimony, and federal agents ready to act. Tomorrow Marcus Brennan faces justice. Victoria faces justice. And your aunt faces justice for betraying her own family. Thank you, Elena said softly. For everything. For believing me, for helping me, for being patient with me, learning to trust again. The evidence was building, but they needed one more thing. Proof of an actual attempted theft. They needed to catch Marcus and Victoria in the act of trying to move Elena's money. We need to give them an opportunity, James said during one of their planning sessions. Make them think the time is right to make their move. Elena had an idea. What if I tell Marcus that my aunt has finally agreed to give me full access to my parents' estate? That she's signing papers next week that will put everything in my name? That might work, James said thoughtfully. If they think they're running out of time, they'll have to act fast. And fast means mistakes. Elena planted the seed carefully during a dinner with Marcus. She mentioned casually that her aunt had agreed to a full accounting of the estate and was transferring control to Elena. Marcus's expression remained neutral, but Elena saw the flash of panic in his eyes. That's wonderful news, he said. When is this happening? Next Friday, Elena said. She's having her lawyer draw up the papers. We should get married before then, Marcus said suddenly. That way we can handle the estate together as a team. That's fast, Elena said, pretending to be surprised. Why wait? Marcus pressed. We love each other. Let's just do it. Monday at the courthouse. What do you say? Elena pretended to think about it, then smiled and agreed. Okay, Monday. Let's do it. As soon as Marcus left that night, Elena called James. He took the bait. He wants to get married Monday, before the estate transfer Friday. Perfect, James said. Now we just need to make sure Victoria and your aunt show their hand too. The next day, Elena visited her aunt, wearing a recording device. She told her aunt about the planned Monday wedding. Her aunt's reaction was carefully controlled, but Elena saw the same panic she'd seen in Marcus. That's very sudden, dear. Are you sure you've thought this through? We don't need a big production, he said. We've already wasted so much time. Let's just make it official and start our life together. Elena pretended to be swept up in the romance while silently documenting everything. James had installed sophisticated recording equipment in her home and studio, capturing every conversation. One night, Marcus drank too much wine at dinner. His careful mask slipped, revealing the cold calculator beneath. You know, Elena, you're really very lucky I came back, he said, his words slightly slurred. Most men wouldn't give a second chance to someone who embarrassed them like you did. Walking away from the wedding, making accusations. But I'm a forgiving person. I should be grateful? Elena asked, her voice carefully neutral. You should, Marcus agreed, missing the edge in her tone. Do you know how many women would kill to be with me? But I chose you. I came back for you. Why did you come back, Marcus? Elena asked softly. Really? He looked at her, and for a moment his true feelings showed in his eyes. There was no love there, no affection. Just cold appraisal of an asset to be acquired. Because we're good together, he said, the mask sliding back into place. Because I love you. But Elena had seen the truth. And the recording had captured it. The final pieces fall into place. James's investigation had uncovered the offshore accounts Victoria and her mother had set up. He found email exchanges between Victoria and Marcus that dated back almost 2 years, long before Marcus had coincidentally walked into Elena's studio. They had researched her, planned the approach, and executed the con with precision. Marcus had even dated another woman in town first, someone who introduced him to Elena, making the meeting seem more natural. About Marcus. About what you think you heard that day at the resort. Victoria sat down uninvited. I know you're seeing him again. And I'm worried about you. Elena almost laughed at the audacity. You're worried about me? That's rich, Victoria. I'm serious, Victoria said, her voice taking on an urgent tone. Marcus isn't who you think he is. He's dangerous. He's been using both of us. It was a new angle, and Elena had to admire the strategy. Victoria was trying to position herself as a victim too. Another person deceived by Marcus's charm. Is that so? Elena asked. Yes. He convinced me to help him access information about your parents' estate. He said he was trying to protect you, that your aunt was stealing from you. But now I think he was planning to steal it himself. Elena, I'm sorry. I got caught up in his lies, but I'm trying to make it right now. Elena looked at her cousin, seeing the calculation behind the worried expression. Victoria was smart. She sensed that Elena might be building a case and was trying to shift all blame onto Marcus. What do you suggest I do? Elena asked, playing along. Stay away from him, Victoria urged. And let me help you investigate the estate properly. We can work together to make sure you get what's rightfully yours. I'll think about it, Elena said noncommittally. After Victoria left, Elena immediately called James and played him the recording. She's panicking, James said with satisfaction. She knows something is wrong. This is good, Elena. It means they're making mistakes. What's our next move? Elena asked. We push harder. Make them desperate. Desperate people reveal their true plans. Marcus's true nature emerges. As the plan progressed, Marcus became more aggressive about moving forward with marriage. He suggested a quick, simple ceremony. Just a courthouse wedding followed by a honeymoon. He thought his charm still worked on her. He had no idea he was walking into a trap. Over the next month, Elena and Marcus slowly rebuilt their relationship, or at least appeared to. They had coffee that turned into dinners. Dinners that turned into long conversations. Marcus was patient, carefully reconstructing the image of the perfect boyfriend. All the while, Elena wore tiny recording devices provided by James. Every conversation was captured, every lie documented. And slowly, Marcus began to reveal his true self again. You know, we should talk about your parents' estate, Marcus said one evening over dinner. With everything that happened, I'm worried your aunt might not be managing it properly. What do you mean? Elena asked innocently. Well, Victoria mentioned once that there might be more assets than you know about. I think your aunt has been keeping information from you. If we got married, you'd have legal standing to demand a full accounting. There it was. The slow manipulation toward marriage and access to her money. Why would my aunt hide things from me? Elena asked. I don't want to speak badly of your family, Marcus said carefully. But sometimes people get greedy. Sometimes they convince themselves they deserve what isn't theirs. I just want to make sure you're protected. Elena let him spin his web, recording every word. Meanwhile, James was working his own investigation, tracking financial records and finding connections between Marcus, Victoria, and her aunt. The return of Victoria. A few weeks into Elena's fake reconciliation with Marcus, Victoria appeared. She came to the studio late one afternoon, her expression carefully neutral. Elena, Victoria said. We need to talk. About what? Elena asked coolly. Made sure her post suggested she was moving on but still felt lonely. She wanted Marcus to see that she was doing well financially but might still be emotionally vulnerable. It took 2 weeks for Marcus to take the bait. He showed up at her studio on a Saturday morning, looking humble and regretful. "Elena," he said softly when she opened the door. "I know I have no right to be here. I know I hurt you. But I need you to know that I've spent every day since regretting what happened." Elena had prepared for this moment, rehearsing her response with James. She had to seem believable, wounded but not completely closed off. "What do you want, Marcus?" she asked, her voice cold but not harsh. "I want to explain," he said. "What you heard that day, it wasn't what it sounded like. Victoria was trying to involve me in some scheme, and I was gathering information to protect you. I was going to tell you everything, but you disappeared before I could explain." The lie was smooth, almost believable. Elena could see how she would have fallen for it 6 months ago. "That's quite a story," Elena said. "Do you have any proof?" Marcus looked pained. "No. I know how that sounds. But Elena, I love you. I never stopped loving you. These months without you have been torture. Please just give me a chance to prove myself." Elena let herself waver, showing uncertainty in her expression. "I don't know, Marcus. You really hurt me." "I know," he said earnestly. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll let me. Just coffee, Elena. One conversation. If you still don't believe me afterward, I'll leave you alone forever." Elena pretended to think about it, then slowly nodded. "One coffee. That's all I'm promising." Marcus's smile was genuine relief mixed with something else. Something that looked like triumph. He thought he was winning her back. The alliance forms. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, weighing her options. She could continue building her new life, let the past stay buried, and focus on her art and business. Or she could take a chance on trusting someone again, risk reopening wounds that were barely healing, and fight for justice that might never come. By morning, she had made her decision. Elena called James and arranged to meet at his office in the city. The Cortland Investments building was impressive, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. James's office on the top floor had windows overlooking the entire metropolitan area. "I'm in," Elena said without preamble. "But I need to know everything. No secrets, no surprises. If we're doing this, we do it with complete honesty." James nodded, respect showing in his expression. "Agreed. Let me show you what I've collected." He opened a file cabinet and pulled out several thick folders. Inside were photographs, financial records, testimony from other victims, and a timeline of Marcus's movements over the past decade. The evidence was damning but incomplete. Nothing that directly connected Marcus to the actual theft of money. "He's always careful to stay one step removed," James explained. "He romances the victim, gets them to trust him, identifies their assets, and then introduces them to his partner. The partner, usually posing as a financial advisor or family member with insider knowledge, handles the actual transfer of funds. Marcus plays the supportive boyfriend or fiancé, never directly involved in the money." "So Victoria is the one who would actually move my money," Elena said, understanding dawning. "Exactly. And your aunt probably provides the legal cover, using her position as executor to authorize transfers. By the time anyone realizes what happened, Marcus is gone, Victoria and your aunt claim they were deceived too, and the money has disappeared into offshore accounts." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you have something my sister didn't," James said. "You have a chance to stop him before he moves on to the next victim. And because I've spent the past 5 years tracking Marcus Brennan, documenting his crimes, and waiting for the right opportunity to bring him down." "Why wait?" Elena asked. "If you have evidence." "Evidence needs to be airtight," James interrupted. "Marcus is careful. He never takes money directly. He always has a partner, usually someone close to the victim, who handles the financial transfers. That way, if anyone investigates, he can claim he knew nothing about it. He's a ghost who leaves other people holding the bag." Elena thought about Victoria and her aunt. They were the ones with access to the trust fund and estate. Marcus had positioned himself perfectly to walk away clean if anything went wrong. "So what do you propose?" Elena asked. "I propose we work together," James said. You want justice for what they did to you. I want justice for what Marcus did to my sister and the other women he's scammed. Together, we can build a case that will put them all in prison where they belong. Elena studied him carefully. Every instinct she had learned from her betrayal told her to be suspicious, to question his motives. But she also saw genuine anger in his eyes when he talked about his sister, real pain beneath his professional exterior. I need to think about it, Elena said finally. Take your time, James replied, standing. But not too much time. I have information that suggests Marcus and Victoria are planning to move soon. Once they disappear with your money, finding them will be nearly impossible. What kind of investment are you proposing, Mr. Cortland? Elena asked, her tone careful. Just James, please, he said. And I'm not here to propose anything yet. I'm here to listen. I've been following your work for the past few months. Your style has evolved dramatically. There's pain in these new paintings but also strength. That combination is rare and valuable. Something about his directness put Elena at ease, though she remained cautious. Marcus had taught her to trust slowly and verify everything. I have time for coffee, Elena said. There's a cafe next door. Over coffee, James explained that he collected art from emerging artists, helping them gain exposure in galleries and auction houses. But as they talked, Elena sensed there was more he wasn't saying. His questions were too specific, too informed about her personal situation. Finally, she set down her cup and looked him straight in the eyes. What do you really want, James? You didn't come here just for my art. James smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. You're perceptive. That's good. You'll need that for what's coming. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. I know about Marcus Brennan. I know about Victoria and your aunt. And I know about your inheritance. Elena's heart raced, but she kept her face neutral. How do you know about that? Because Marcus Brennan tried to run the same scam on my sister 5 years ago, James said, his expression hardening. She was smarter than he expected and got suspicious before the wedding. But by the time we gathered evidence, he had disappeared. Changed his name, moved to a different state, and started over. My sister never fully recovered from the betrayal. She still has trust issues that affect every relationship. Had been the executor of her parents' estate. The $2 million trust fund did exist, but there was more. Much more. Her parents had been successful real estate investors, and their properties alone were worth another $3 million. Properties that Elena had never been told about. The betrayal went deeper than just Victoria and Marcus. It involved her own aunt, who had been systematically hiding assets and planning to keep everything for herself and her daughter. ####the mysterious stranger. On a rainy Tuesday in October, a man walked into Elena's studio. He was tall, probably in his early 40s, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. He wore an expensive suit but carried himself with casual confidence, studying each painting with genuine interest. You have real talent, he said, stopping in front of Elena's newest piece. It showed a phoenix rising from flames, all reds and golds in fierce determination. This one speaks to me. Thank you, Elena replied professionally. That piece is part of my phoenix collection. It's not for sale yet. Everything has a price, the man said with a slight smile. The words triggered a memory so sharp it hurt. That's what Marcus had said when they first met. Elena's expression must have changed because the man immediately raised his hands apologetically. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. I didn't mean to offend you. He pulled out a business card. My name is James Cortland. I'm an art collector and investor. I'd like to talk to you about your work if you have time. Elena took the card, studying it carefully. James Cortland, CEO of Cortland Investments. She recognized the name vaguely, something about commercial real estate and venture capital. The transformation begins. 6 months had passed since Elena's world shattered in that wedding venue. 6 months of pain, investigation, and slow, deliberate transformation. The woman who now sat in her expanded art studio bore little resemblance to the heartbroken girl who had cried on the floor. Elena had cut her long hair into a sharp, professional style. She wore tailored clothes instead of her usual paint-stained jeans. But the biggest change wasn't visible. It was the steel in her eyes, the calculation in her smile, The way she now saw through people's words to their true intentions. The studio had transformed too. With Sarah's help and some careful financial planning, Elena had expanded into the space next door. Her paintings now commanded higher prices, attracting collectors from the city. She had learned to market herself, to network, to play the game that she once thought beneath her artistic integrity. "You look like you could run a corporation," Sarah said one morning, bringing coffee to Elena's new office space. "Maybe I could," Elena replied, signing papers for her latest commission. "I've learned a lot about business in the past 6 months. Turns out survival is an excellent teacher." What Elena didn't mention was the other education she'd received. The private investigator Sarah had helped her hire had uncovered some interesting information about Marcus Blackwell. His real name was Marcus Brennan, and he had a history of romance scams targeting women with money. 3 other women in different states had similar stories, though none had pressed charges due to lack of evidence. Elena had also learned something shocking about her inheritance. Her Aunt Victoria's mother. For the first time in days, Elena felt a spark of something other than grief. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Hope. And beneath the hope, something stronger and fiercer. Determination. "You're right," Elena said slowly. "I can't just let them win. I won't." "That's my girl," Sarah said with a fierce smile. "Now eat your food and tell me everything you know about Marcus Blackwell. We're going to find out who he really is, and we're going to make sure he pays for what he's done." As Elena ate and talked with her friend, she made a silent promise to herself. She would rebuild from this betrayal. She would become stronger, smarter, and more careful with her trust. And somehow, someway, she would make sure that Marcus and Victoria faced consequences for their lies. The old Elena, the trusting and naive artist who believed in fairy tale romance, was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone determined not just to survive but to fight back. This wasn't the end of Elena's story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter about justice, revenge, and learning that the best way to defeat people who tried to break you was to rise stronger than they ever imagined possible. The sun was setting over Harmony Bay as Elena looked out her studio window. The ocean reflected the orange and red sky, colors that no longer reminded her of destruction but of transformation. Fire didn't just destroy. Fire also purified, refined, and created something new from what remained. Elena Martinez was burning with determination. And from those flames she would rise again. Don't know how to stop them yet. Over the next few days, Elena tried to pull herself together. She canceled the wedding, returning deposits where she could and losing money where she couldn't. She packed up the engagement ring and put it in a drawer, unable to look at it but not ready to get rid of it yet. She went through the motions of living, but inside she felt hollow and broken. Marcus tried calling her several times, but she never answered. He sent text messages claiming it had all been a misunderstanding, that she had heard things out of context. But Elena knew the truth. She had heard every word clearly. Victoria stayed silent, which somehow felt worse than Marcus's fake attempts at reconciliation. At least he was predictable in his dishonesty. Victoria's silence felt like the final confirmation that their entire relationship had meant nothing. The small-town gossip machine started churning. People whispered about the canceled wedding, creating their own stories about what must have happened. Some blamed Elena for getting cold feet. Others suggested Marcus had found someone else. No one knew the real truth except the 3 people involved. Elena's art suffered. She would stand in front of her canvas for hours, brush in hand, but nothing would come. The colors looked wrong. The images in her mind wouldn't translate to paint. It was like the betrayal had stolen her creativity along with everything else. One evening, as Elena sat in her studio after closing, Sarah came by with dinner and determination in her eyes. "Okay," Sarah said, setting down takeout containers. "You've had your crying time. Now it's time to fight back." "How?" Elena asked weakly. "They're right. I don't have any proof." "Then we get proof," Sarah said firmly. "We dig into Marcus's background. We find out who he really is and what he's really done. Men like that, they always have other victims, other scams. We just have to find them." "Who's going to believe you?" Victoria sneered, her true nature finally showing. "The heartbroken girl making up stories about her ex? Please, We'll just say you couldn't handle the pressure of getting married and had a breakdown. Your little art studio barely makes enough to keep the lights on. What do you think will happen when we tell everyone you're unstable?" The threat hung in the air between them. Elena realized with horror that Victoria was right. Without proof, it would be her word against theirs. And they had already proven how skilled they were at deception. ##### The aftermath. Elena left the resort without another word, her mind racing. She drove back to her studio on autopilot, barely seeing the familiar streets of Harmony Bay. When she finally parked and walked into her sanctuary, the walls covered with her paintings felt like they were closing in on her. She collapsed onto the paint-stained floor and finally let the tears come. They poured out of her in great gasping sobs that shook her entire body. She cried for the love that never existed, for the future that was built on lies, for the betrayal by someone she had trusted with her whole heart. Sarah found her there an hour later, still crying on the floor. Her friend took one look at Elena's face and immediately knelt beside her, pulling her into a tight hug. "What happened?" Sarah asked gently. Through broken sentences and fresh tears, Elena told her everything. Sarah's expression grew darker with each revelation, her jaw clenching with anger. "I'll kill them," Sarah said when Elena finished. "I swear I'll." "No," Elena interrupted, wiping her eyes. "Violence won't fix this. But I'm not going to let them get away with it either. No. She wouldn't let them see her run. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of her tears, not yet." Elena took a deep breath, straightened her spine, and pushed open the door to the event hall. Marcus and Victoria were standing close together, looking at paper spread across one of the tables. They jumped apart when they saw her, guilt flashing across their faces before they tried to mask it with fake smiles. "Elena," Marcus said, his voice full of false warmth. "You're early. We were just, Victoria was helping me with some surprise details for the wedding." "Really?" Elena's voice was cold, harder than she knew it could be. "What kind of surprise details require discussing offshore bank accounts and my inheritance?" The color drained from both their faces. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it again. Victoria actually took a step backward, her eyes wide with panic. "How much did you hear?" Marcus finally asked, dropping the pretense. "Enough," Elena said. "Enough to know that everything about us has been a lie. Enough to know that you never loved me. Enough to know that my own cousin betrayed me for money." "Elena, listen," Victoria started, but Elena cut her off with a sharp gesture. "No. You listen. Both of you. You think I'm naive? You think I'm too trusting? Maybe I was. But not anymore." Marcus's expression shifted from panic to something colder, more calculating. "What are you going to do about it? You have no proof of anything illegal. We had some conversations. So what? You can't prove we planned anything." Elena felt tears threatening but forced them back. She wouldn't cry in front of them. "You're right," she admitted. "I can't prove anything right now. But the wedding is off. And I'm going to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of people you are." Victoria laughed, a cruel sound that cut through Elena like a knife. "I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. But she's always been so naive, so trusting. She makes it too easy. That's what I love about her," Marcus said, and Elena could hear the mockery in his voice. "Well, that and the $2 million she doesn't even know she has access to until she gets married. Her parents were smart to set up the trust that way. Too bad they didn't live to see what a fool their daughter turned out to be." Elena's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a gasp. Her parents had died in a car accident 3 years ago, just before she opened her studio. She had been so lost in grief that she hadn't paid attention to the details of their estate. Her aunt had handled everything, and Elena had trusted that the small monthly stipend she received was all there was. She never knew about a $2 million trust fund that would unlock when she got married. But Victoria knew. Victoria, who worked at the law firm that handled her parents' estate. Victoria, who had access to confidential information. Victoria, who had sold out her own cousin for money. And Marcus. Marcus, who had never loved her at all. Marcus, who had pursued her, proposed to her, and planned a future with her. All as part of an elaborate scheme to steal her inheritance. Elena felt like she was drowning. Like the ocean in her paintings had risen up to pull her under. Her vision swam, and she had to put a hand against the wall to steady herself. ####the confrontation. For a moment, Elena considered walking away silently, running back to her studio and pretending she had never heard the conversation. But anger began to burn through her shock and grief. These people had played with her heart like it meant nothing. They had looked her in the eyes and lied with smiles on their faces. They had planned to take everything from her and leave her with nothing but pain. Now Elena understood why he had been so insistent about including Victoria in the wedding party. The truth made her sick to her stomach. #### The devastating discovery. This morning had started normally enough. Elena had gone to the Grand Oceana Resort for what was supposed to be a final walkthrough with the wedding coordinator. Marcus had said he would meet her there after a business meeting. Elena arrived early, excited to see the space where she would soon marry the love of her life. The coordinator wasn't at the front desk, so Elena decided to walk to the event hall on her own. She knew the way after several planning visits. As she approached the hall, she heard voices. One was definitely Marcus. The other took her a moment to recognize, but then her blood ran cold. Victoria. Elena stopped walking, something in their tone making her pause before entering. She stood just outside the door, hidden from view, and listened to words that would destroy everything she believed about her life. "Are you sure she doesn't suspect anything?" Victoria's voice was sharp with concern. "Relax," Marcus replied, and Elena could hear the smirk in his voice. "Elena trusts me completely. She's so busy with her little art studio and wedding planning that she hasn't noticed a thing." "You better be right," Victoria said. "We've come too far to mess this up now. Once you're married, we'll have access to the trust fund her parents left. That's $2 million, Marcus. But if she gets suspicious before the wedding..." "She won't," Marcus interrupted confidently. "I've been the perfect fiancé. Flowers, compliments, talking about our future together. She eats it up. In 2 weeks, we'll be married. In 6 months, we'll have the money transferred to offshore accounts and then we disappear. She'll be left with nothing but her paintings and broken heart." What Elena didn't know was that Marcus had a very different reason for choosing that specific venue. A reason that had nothing to do with making their wedding day special. #### The warning signs. Looking back now, Elena could see all the moments when she should have questioned things. There were phone calls Marcus would take in private, stepping outside or going to another room. There were weekends when he said he had to work but couldn't explain exactly what projects required his attention. There were times when his stories didn't quite line up, when details changed slightly in the retelling. Sarah had pointed out these inconsistencies repeatedly. Last week he said his company was based in Seattle, Sarah had mentioned one evening. Today he said Portland. Which is it? "He has offices in multiple cities," Elena had defended him. "You're reading too much into things." "Am I?" Sarah had asked gently. "Or are you reading too little because you don't want to see what's really there?" Elena had brushed off her friend's concerns. She told herself that Sarah was just being overprotective, that not everyone who seemed too good to be true was hiding something sinister. She convinced herself that real love meant trusting without questioning, believing without doubting. How wrong she had been. Then there was her cousin Victoria. Growing up, Elena and Victoria had been close, almost like sisters. But as they got older, competition crept into their relationship. Victoria always seemed jealous of Elena's artistic talent, her ability to create beauty from nothing. When Elena opened her studio, Victoria had made snide comments about playing with paint instead of getting a real job. Still, Elena had invited Victoria to be a bridesmaid in the wedding. Family was important to Elena even when that family was difficult. Marcus had encouraged the gesture. "Life's too short for feuds," he had said. "Your wedding day should be about bringing everyone together." "That one isn't for sale," Elena had replied, surprised by her own boldness. "It's personal." Marcus had smiled wider. "Everything has a price. Name yours." "Some things are priceless," she had countered, matching his intensity. That conversation led to coffee, which led to dinner, which led to a year of romance that felt like a fairy tale. Marcus said he was a businessman from the city, working on expanding his investment company. He traveled often but always came back to her. He brought her flowers, took her to fancy restaurants in the city, and listen when she talked about her dreams of opening a bigger gallery someday. Her best friend Sarah had been suspicious from the start. "There's something about him that doesn't add up," Sarah had warned over coffee one morning. "He's too smooth, too perfect. Real people have flaws, Elena." But Elena had been in love, and love made her blind to red flags she should have seen waving right in front of her face. ##### the engagement. When Marcus proposed 6 months ago, Elena thought her life was complete. They stood on the same beach where they met, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. He had gotten down on one knee, pulled out a ring that sparkled like captured starlight, and asked her to be his wife. "Elena, you've shown me what real beauty looks like," he had said, his voice full of emotion. "Not just in your art but in how you see the world. I want to spend every day of my life seeing the world through your eyes. Will you marry me?" She had said yes through happy tears, and they had celebrated with champagne on the beach as stars began to appear overhead. It was perfect. Too perfect, she now realized. Planning the wedding had been exciting but stressful. Marcus insisted on the Grand Oceana Resort, the most expensive venue in the area. Elena had worried about the cost, but Marcus assured her he could handle it. "I want our day to be special," he had said. "You deserve the best."